Ask the Court, a program produced by the International Criminal Court.
What was the decision today by the ICC judges?
In order to be able to perform his duties as Deputy President of Kenya, Mr. Ruto's lawyers requested that he be excused from being physically present throughout his trial. The judges have decided by a majority to grant the request conditionally. That means that the chamber has excused Mr. Ruto from being physically present at all times during the entire trial, but he is still required to be present at the entirety of the opening statements of all parties and participants, the entirety of the closing statements of all parties and participants, when victims present their views and concerns in person, the entirety of the delivery of judgment in the case, the entirety of the sentencing hearing if applicable, the entirety of the sentencing if applicable, the entirety of the victim impact hearings if applicable, the entirety of the reparation hearing if applicable, and any other attendance directed by the chamber. In addition, the chamber requires that when Mr. Ruto is not present during the remainder of the trial, his absence be directed towards the performance of his duties as Deputy President of Kenya.
What would happen if William Samoei Ruto is not present at the hearings that he is required to attend?
Violations of any of these conditions may result in the revocation of the excusal and or the issuance of an arrest warrant as appropriate.
Why did the judges decide to excuse Mr. Ruto from continual presence at the trial?
The chamber found that accused persons are generally required to be physically present throughout their trials under the ICC statute. However, reading the statute as a whole, the chamber found that the drafters of the Rome Statute did not intend to create an inflexible requirement that the accused always be present at trial regardless of the circumstances. Therefore, the chamber held that although the statute establishes a general rule that the accused must be physically present at trial, the chamber may exceptionally permit an excusal when necessary to accommodate the particular circumstances of a given case. These excusals may be permitted only in truly exceptional circumstances and on a case-by-case basis. In this case, the chamber found that Mr. Ruto's duties as the Deputy President of Kenya qualify as an exceptional circumstance that would make such an excusal reasonable. The chamber stresses that the excusal is purely a matter of striking a reasonable balance to accommodate the important function that Mr. Ruto must perform as Deputy President of Kenya. The benefit of the decision is that the trial proceeds without interruption.
Has the position of the accused influenced the chamber's decision?
Not at all, in the sense of allowing him to be absent merely because of positions. The chamber stressed that the excusal allowed to Mr. Ruto is purely a matter of striking a reasonable balance that accommodates the demanding functions of his office as Deputy Head of State of Kenya and, quote, not merely the gratification of the dignity of his own occupation of that office, end of quote. It should be noted that Mr. Ruto is not on trial in his capacity as Deputy President of Kenya. He is being tried in his individual capacity for allegations of crimes made against him personally.
Does this decision have an impact on the chamber's authority to try Mr. Ruto?
Not at all. The chamber stressed the principle that there is no immunity from the jurisdiction of the court. The chamber pointed out that the ICC statute and general principles of international criminal law and the Constitution of Kenya in particular agree that Mr. Ruto has to be tried at the ICC. The Chamber considers that it is entirely possible to conditionally grant Mr. Ruto the excusal while still proceeding with his trial without interruption. The benefit of the decision is that the trial proceeds without any interruption.
Will Joshua Arap Sang, the second defendant in the case, be similarly excused from continued presence at trial?
The Chamber's decision has no effect on Mr. Sang. Mr. Sang did not apply for a similar excusal. Mr. Sang's counsel had informed the Chamber that Mr. Sang intends to be present at trial throughout.
Will this decision affect the case against Uhuru Muigai Kenyatta?
No. The decision rendered today is not a decision in the case of Mr. Kenyatta, which is separate. Mr. Kenyatta has so far not applied to be excused from being present at his trial. If Mr. Kenyatta makes a similar application in his own case, the trial chamber trying him will have to consider his application according to its own facts. It will be up to the chamber in the Kenyatta case to decide.
Were there other trials at the ICC that have been in the past heard without continued presence of the accused?
Not to the same extent as in the present decision. In the member case, the trial chamber continued hearing the testimony of witnesses on a few occasions in Mr. Bemba's absence at his request.
Did the judges consider the impact of the decision on the protection of victims and witnesses?
The judges have stressed that Mr. Ruto, in his personal capacity and as the Deputy President of Kenya, has to take effective actions in good faith to ensure that witnesses and victims are not intimidated. Desirable action in that connection should include impressing upon his supporters the need to refrain from any conduct or utterance that may reasonably create intimidating or harassing atmosphere for victims and witnesses.
What measures can the ICC take to assure Mr. Ruto surrenders to the court's custody if there was to be a conviction at the end of the trial, especially if he's not attending his trial continuously?
It is important to stress that under the law, Mr. Ruto enjoys a presumption of innocence. The chamber will deal with the situation as appropriate if the prosecution proves him guilty as charged. The conditions of the excusal were carefully couched to enable the chamber to deal with that sort of eventuality. If it does materialize in the end, the trial chamber retains judicial control over the accused during the entirety of the proceedings.
Will today's decision have an impact on the participation of victims?
The decision was carefully considered and delivered in a way that seeks to avoid any negative impact on the participation of victims. It is important to mention that the chamber also made it a condition that Mr. Ruto is required to be present when victims come to court to express their views and concern in person, as well as during opening statements by victims' counsel and any reparation hearing or victim impact hearing that may be held in the case.
Can the Office of the Prosecutor appeal today's decision?
The prosecutor may seek the Chamber's authorization to appeal the decision. It will be for the prosecutor to seek to follow the applicable rules if she wants to appeal the decision.